What up, guys? Kevin here. Square Enix. What's going on at Square Enix? I feel like I've made this video before. I apologize if I did. Doing the greatest hits. I'm on tour. I got to play the greatest hits. No one's asking for this but me. Square Enix shedding weight. They got rid of Crystal Dynamics. Got rid of Eidos. They're just releasing all their games. They're just taking all the games they've been holding on to. They're just like, yeah, just release them all. We're getting bought, baby. It don't matter anymore. Which I kind of hate that. I hate publishers or developers are just holding on to their games for strategy. Ooh, we need to release it here, release this here. It's like, yo, I'm dying. I want to play Tactics Ogre. But they even came out and said they're trying to get purchased. Of course, everyone's pointing towards Sony. Why? Why Sony? Just because Xbox bought a couple publishers. Now it's Sony's turn. They just bought Bungie. And their revenue and everything is down too. So, yeah. So we'll get to who I think Square Enix is being bought by. Obviously, you can probably tell by what you're looking at on the screen. But, yeah, everything is down for Square Enix, but Final Fantasy XIV is up. It's a beautiful thing. Final Fantasy XIV is a beautiful game. It is. And I will say this. I'll make a plea first before I totally lose respect for you if you decide not to play Final Fantasy XIV because it's an MMO and call yourself a huge fan of the franchise. I guess, I'm somebody who hasn't completed the original Final Fantasy VII, so, you can think the same of me. But I'll just say this, if you are a fan of Final Fantasy, huge fan, and you're skipping Final Fantasy XIV because it's an MMO, I'm going to lose a little bit of respect for you as a Final Fantasy fan. And I get it. It's a huge undertaking. You can say, hey, man, I want to get to it. I'll allow that because I want to get to Final Fantasy VII OG. Been wanting to for years. But I'll respect that. But if you're somebody like, oh, I don't want to play, it's an MMO, and you call yourself a huge Final Fantasy fan, like, no. You just do the MSQs. You can do that shit single player. It's fun. It's easy. It gets great pretty quick. People say, oh, I haven't Sword. Like, no, I'm in a Realm of Born. About like 20 hours in, and I was just like, oh, this is like really good. Really good. But yeah, Square Enix, they're getting bought by somebody. Who is it? To me, the writing on the wall is Nintendo. It's Nintendo. And to me, the evidence from the get-go when I probably made the video in the first place is like, why would Sony want to buy Square Enix but they have to get rid of like two really talented studios, Crystal Dynamics and Eidos? Those are they made Guardians of the Galaxy. Everybody loves that game. Crystal Dynamics makes very great Tomb Raider games. And I'm hearing people like, well, they have Uncharted. Good. Do like a Uncharted and Tomb Raider crossover game. Who the fuck? That would sell like 20 million in a day. Who would not play that? Play a game where you play as both Nathan Drake and Lara Croft. That would be amazing. And that would be a great story. Because Nathan Drake's married and it's like, fuck, I got this. Oh, she's a lesbian now, so who cares? But yeah, why would PlayStation give that up? They're buying studios all over the world. Eidos Montreal makes huge sense to have. Wasn't Haven in Montreal? Wouldn't you want to, I don't know, give Haven some friends up north? Yeah, PlayStation's not buying Square Enix. It's Nintendo. And Nintendo, yeah, they've come out and said, oh, we're not getting into this game, buying any blah, blah, blah. They got to have the Nintendo-ness, the Nintendo DNA in them for us to buy them. I think they do. Triangle Strategy? I mean, Final Fantasy, those games originally came to Nintendo. I'm sure Nintendo probably wants to rectify that as well. The Dragon Quest. Remember, Dragon Quest 11. Nintendo got a special version of Dragon Quest 11, Dragon Quest 11S, which then eventually came to Xbox and PlayStation. But they got that. And like Triangle Strategy, Octopath Traveler, Bravely Default. It really seems like Square Enix is keeping a lot of Japanese studios. So maybe Nintendo hasn't bought them, but maybe they're courting themselves to Nintendo. And they know Nintendo don't want any of those Western developers. They don't want Eidos or Crystal Dynamics. Do they? I'm sure they have some Western development teams, do they? But no, I think Square Enix is trying to shrinky-dink themselves and just make themselves a much nice, tighter package. Like, hey, Nintendo, you're just going to get the best of the best with us. Just what we're known for. And I think Nintendo at some point is going to make a splash in this acquisition game. The fact is, they kind of really don't have to. They keep putting out games. Like they're Nintendo, but I don't know. Like, even if you put a gun to my head and say, who did Square Enix get purchased by? I may even still say Nintendo over PlayStation. Everyone just assumes it's PlayStation, but Nintendo, just the type of games that or Square Enix, the type of games that they are concentrating on are just very Nintendo kind of retro looking games. Tactics Ogre, I guess, isn't Tactics Ogre a PlayStation only game? But games like Harvestella, just games that look like they just run best on Switch. And now you might say, well, you talked about Final Fantasy 14. What are they going to Nintendo's still going to make Final Fantasy 14 for PlayStation? Yeah, it's 2022, about to be 2023. And I know damn well their next system, if they were to buy Square Enix, they'll make sure to get Final Fantasy 14 up and running on the next Switch or whatever device they put out. Nintendo's came out and said they're going to be putting games, not their big titles, but putting games on PC. They already put games on mobile. I think, yeah, this move from Nintendo would be, I think, the best move for them. For both, actually. I would love that. They may have to they would get the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth on the Switch, even if it's cloud. But yeah, that's just the most organic deal. And all the moves that Square Enix is doing, just to me, it just shows they're presenting themselves to Nintendo. Nintendo buys stuff. Didn't they just buy something recently? And Square Enix just making themselves a package that says, hey, buy us, Nintendo, please, please. I don't know. Because it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would PlayStation just give up those two great studios? Like, could you imagine a Guardians of the Galaxy? Like, if you're PlayStation, Guardians of the Galaxy, everyone loves it. Like, I would have to assume PlayStation would be like, well, under our budget and our marketing, that game would have done really well. Same with the Tomb Raider games. I think the Tomb Raider games still did pretty well. I think they sold like 40 million, the recent ones. So, yeah, I don't know. I just can't take people seriously if they say PlayStation. And it's like, oh, they bought Crunchyroll and they're trying to get back. Dude, they got rid of all their Studio Japan or Japan Studios or whatever. I don't know. I just don't buy it for PlayStation. I'm not going to be shocked. Maybe I'm just 50-50 right now. It's just, I think there's just so many people pointing towards PlayStation that I kind of feel like an idiot if I don't go that way too. But to me, it's just, everything is screaming Nintendo. Either Nintendo is interested in Square Enix or Square Enix is presenting themselves to Nintendo. Why wouldn't they? They make more games for Nintendo than they do for PlayStation. It's a fact. It's an absolute fact. All the HD 2D games, they at least come to Nintendo first. All right, I'm done. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? I will talk to you later. Later.